Welcome back to the Fairway Performance Podcast. My name is Shaun Diachkoff and I'm the host of this show. And my aim for this podcast is to help you to move your body better and improve your best asset on the golf course so that you can play golf to your true potential. Now, on today's episode, we are discussing the topic of mastering dissociation so that you can be a better ball striker. So striking the ball more consistently with more power and just able to get around the course in the way that you want to because your body is moving in the way that you want it to. Now, this episode, the first thing is dissociation. Like, what is dissociation and what's the importance of it? We should set the scene there. Now, dissociation is essentially the body's ability to move the upper and the lower halves independently of each other or during the swing. And essentially this concept will help to create a more efficient swing or a more effective golf swing and a more consistent golf swing. So imagine your upper body and your lower body as two separate portions, and we're trying to get them moving independently of each other because this helps with the kinematic sequence. So the kinematic sequence, to introduce another term into this episode already, is essentially the ability to transfer power from the ground all the way through the body, out through the arms, through the club, into the club head, and obviously into the golf ball to go further. The kinematic sequence is important, and it is made even better or more fluid by us being able to transfer the power better by having an upper and a lower half which can independently operate from each other. So that's essentially the importance of dissociation. Now, what does it do for your ball striking? Like, how does it make your ball striking better? So it allows us to create more torque and more power by allowing the lower body to initiate the downswing, and it allows us to have better club face control by separating the upper and lower body. It can lead to a better swing path and a better contact with the golf ball because we are able to rotate through the ball. So we're not doing things like early extending or coming over the top or having all these other swing characteristics or issues which may show up for people, because we are actually rotating the hips through the ball. The club face is squaring at impact, and then we're rotating through and able to actually make that full rotation through the ball, or turn through the ball, as most people describe it. So dissociation allows us to do that. If we aren't able to dissociate, or we aren't able to separate both sides of the body and move independently of each other, then what we find is the hips and the shoulders move together, and it then becomes this like robotic, mechanical, very low power, very low consistency type golf swing, because we're unable to move those two elements independently. So the other thing as well is it's going to help us to maintain posture throughout our swing. So one of the big things for early extenders, and I've been an early extender in the past, is that the lower body won't continue to rotate through the swing, especially through impact, which then causes the upper body to do something different, which then, to derive more power, it leads us to things like early extension, because we think driving into the ground harder, extending our hips harder towards the ball is going to create more power. But, it's just a compensation for the body, which is unable to do the things that we want it to, which is to rotate through the ball and then obviously make contact. So dissociation is going to help with that, because we can rotate our pelvis, we can tilt our pelvis, and then that allows us to square the club face. So if you're somebody who you're unsure if you are early extending or you are able to turn properly through the ball, then one of the things that I would say to you is, if you're a right-hander, then you can have one of three ball flights that I see very, very commonly among early extenders or those who aren't able to rotate through the ball. And if you're somebody who doesn't have the best, or like a higher handicap, like 15, 20 plus, then you probably don't have as good a club head awareness or club face control as somebody with a lower single digit or a high single to low single digit or scratch golfer. So what you probably find is, as you don't rotate through the ball, leaves the club face open, and you may tend to block shot. So if you're a right-hander, it just goes out to the right and it stays out there, maybe with a little bit of a slice or a little bit of a draw, depending on, what sort of angle the club face is at and what swing path you have, whether it's at zero or not, very on plane or in inside to out, outside to in. So that can be one thing, is that it's blocked. The second one is towards the lower handicappers, and as you're getting better, because you aren't able to rotate through the ball, your hands will then take over, and your hand-eye coordination is better because you're just a lower handicap golfer. It just goes with the territory. You'll probably start to put little draws on the ball. So while your swing might not be an inside to out swing, which is what will cause us to hit those draws, what you might find is you're hitting draws and it's because your hands are turning over and you're able to put a good consistent hand turn or wrist control to get that ball turning over. And then the third ball flight pattern which can show up, which I see regularly as well, is somebody who hits a big roping hook. And this could be a controlled roping hook because you're just really working hard to turn the hands over, or it could just be on days where you're just not timing it too well and your hands turn over really hard towards the end of the swing, and it just creates a very, very hockey slap shot type ball flight, which is starts right and then goes left because you're turning the face. So it feels like that slap shot, turning the ball over. So that's a few issues that can arise, a few different ball flights, a few different things that can happen from that lack of rotating through the ball, which comes down to being able to dissociate, so being able to move the upper and lower body independently of each other. Now, the last thing is, how do we train to improve this? So firstly, you need to identify whether this is actually an issue for you. And the way we do that through the TPI screening is the first 4 tests. We look at your posture, we look at your pelvic tilt, we look at your pelvic rotation, and we look at your torso rotation. So those 4 tests that we do at the very start, looking at your ability to dissociate and also the way that you set up in your swing. So whether you have a good posture at setup, which is going to allow for good rotation, or you have a C posture or an S posture, which is going to limit rotation and probably cause a whole flow-on effect of other different swing characteristics. So look at it there, because if we can't do it in a slow, controlled environment like a TPI screening, how do you then expect to have the right to be able to go out onto the golf course or the range or the practice fairways, whatever it might be, and try and swing as hard as you can and think that you're somehow going to develop the ability to dissociate without actually being able to do it in a slow, controlled environment? So that's the first thing. We need to be, upfront and serious with ourselves and actually have it assessed and looked at by somebody else to tell us whether we've got that issue going on. The second piece to that is, if we do have the ability to do that, and we can do it, but it's, a little bit difficult to do it, then we need to then get our body to do it with more load, with more difficulty, better coordination, whatever it might be. So we need to use the gym or use other exercises that we can do at home with bands or whatever it might be to then make ourselves better at that, so we exceed the demands of what the golf swing is going to ask of us. In this case, we can do exercises like stalk turns. We can do pull-off presses, which are anti-rotational exercises. So lower body is set, upper body is starting at the pull-up rig or the cable machine or the band. We're rotating out, pulling the band in, pushing it back out, and rotating back. So we're stabilizing the lower body while we're creating a torso and a thoracic core rotational movement, which is isolating the upper body movement from the lower body. We can do lower body ones where we would lay on our backs, we'd bring our knees up to in line with our hips. So if you can imagine an angle like that, knees straight up from your hips, and then your shins are parallel to the floor. You would then hold on to something in front of you like a band and pull it apart, or squeeze a medicine ball or something there so that you're bracing. So we're bracing the upper body, bracing the abs, and then we're windshield wipering our legs across our body so that we're getting that dissociation. The upper body's bracing and staying still, and we're moving the lower body. So there's, pelvic rotation, a little bit of pelvic tilt probably happening there as well. But we're just getting the body better at controlling that movement in a setting like the gym or at home and practicing, so that when we go to the golf course, we're just better coordinated athletes, and then it's going to be able to transfer more easily into our golf swings. Anti-rotational, spinal rotation. If you're somebody who just really lacks the ability to do any of those, it could be not a stability issue. It could be literally a mobility issue, like you just can't rotate the hips. So we need to look at exercises like, 90-90 hip turns or internal hip rotations or whatever it might be, but just anything to grease the groove and to build range of motion and build strength through that range of motion, so that you actually have the ability to do it. Because if you don't have the ability to do it in slow motion, I'm saying it again, if you don't have the ability to do it in slow motion, there's no way on this planet that you are going to be able to do it on the golf course when you're trying to hit that little white ball as hard as you damn well can on the golf course. So if anything's come from this episode, it's one, take a look at your body, take note and take stock of where your body is at. Make sure that you actually have the ability to do these things, to dissociate and move the upper and lower independent of each other before you start trying to implement that into your swing. If you don't, work out whether it's a stability thing or a mobility thing, which I've already sort of explained a little bit more, or a little bit of detail there. If you want to know more detail about that, obviously just message me or email me. Shaun@fairwayperformance.com is my email. send me a message there, or shoot me a message on Instagram where you're probably watching this video, or maybe if you're not, you can head on over there and check out some of the content there. But I'd be glad to have a conversation around, whether it's something that you need to work on, and we can literally just do a really easy couple of tests like a TPI screening to run through that. I hope this episode was insightful for you. I'm on a real push this year, 2025, new year, new me type goals, New Year's resolutions. I want to grow this show so I can impact more golfers just like you who want to improve their best assets on the golf course, which is, of course, your body, so that you can play the best golf that you possibly can, or play to your true potential is what I'm going for there. So if you enjoyed the show, if you like the show, someone who would benefit from it, shoot them this link wherever you're listening to it, or whatever platform you're listening to it on. I would really love the support and help from you to grow the show so that more golfers can wrap their ears around these episodes and hopefully help them and support them in their golf fitness journeys. And until next week, guys, play well, train hard, and I'll talk to you next week.